Hello.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Alex, nice to see you.
Thank you. Hello.
Alex, I was just adding in a topic there on the DA check-in, which is about that question you posted on Discord about Nix. Maybe you can echo that here.
Let me remember. Oh yeah, the discussion about Nix is in the developer experience repo. Is this correct?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we were talking about what to do about it, because when so far as I've met people on Cardano coming as a new person, it's been pretty difficult to wrap my mind around it, because normally I would go for the Nix stuff as a NixOS user. I would go to NixOS community and find out how to solve minor issues that I would be having with my system. But when we talk about when I raised,
Hey, anyone? Can you hear me?
Yep. Welcome.
Yep. When I
Cannot
raised,
hear you. That's the issue.
oh, okay.
Alex was in the middle of talking.
Sorry, go on, Alex.
All right. So, so yeah, the things that IOHK built for Cardano are pretty complex and are known to quite limited number of people, it seems. And because everything on Cardano relies, and the core Cardano in Intersect relies on Nix some way or another, there's a question of is it going to be a problem in the future? Should we address this now, or should we just I don't know, put it as a discussion year from now, or like 5 years from now? Who knows?
Okay, I was just touching on that point to warm up the matter on your side. Maybe let's leave it for further discussion later in our call today. Okay. Thanks for that recap or contextualization. So we looks like we have quorum, right, Tex?
Everybody except for Nick, so you're good to go.
Okay. So welcome, everyone. We have the meeting agenda already on screen. Thanks, Tex, for sharing. I know, although we have the old business, new business that Christian Taylor mentioned, maybe starting with other topics that we have on the new business side. Not sure if you want to jump in, Christian.
Yeah, I was proposing we go through the proposals because they should be 5 to 10 minutes each, and then bug bounty can be last because it's just documentation review. Up to y'all.
For me, sounds good.
Yeah.
Do you want to jump in and share a screen or?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Or text unless you have the docs, you can bring them up.
The proposals? No, I don't.
Okay, I'll do it. No worries. I'll start with I think the one everyone's most curious on. Do we have Adam Dean on by chance?
We do.
Yep.
Everyone.
There he is.
Nick,
Sorry.
so.
I'm used to your hair hanging down, not in ponytail.
I'm incognito this morning.
Okay. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So what we're proposing is, given context, PSC wants to keep things under core definition or maintenance, however they're defining it, which doesn't include non-core roadmap items for funding. So they wanted to pivot that to the open source committee. And so the idea came up of doing like a tooling working group to specify exactly what we're funding, which is kind of like mission critical open source libraries that are used in Cardano day to day that do not have current funding paths within Intersect or Catalyst per se, and we kind of want to remove them from the Catalyst cycle so it's actually an innovation engine. And so what we put together was a proposal doc for that. Happy to reevaluate this based on what we're doing, but me and Sebastian and Adam kind of put together for this working group, their mission is to identify, fund, and support mission critical items, and the funding comes down to OSC approval at the end of the day. But we're making sure we're getting long-term sustainability, trying to get security and usability of these open source libraries, and funding it at the project level, not the maintainer level, which is different. So with that, the key thing is identifying which kinds of projects we're going to do. So we had some ideas down. Potentially DApp frameworks. I think when everyone knows Mesh.js, Blaze, Lucid Evolution, those are like some critical projects that would potentially fall in this. Voting tools, education frameworks, explorers, and monitoring tools with a caveat because we don't want too many per se. Smart contract DSLs, wallets is another one to be cautious of because if you support one but not another, it creates a inflection kind of thing. Indexers, and then I put in a kind of like community suggested tools, some kind of feedback mechanism where it's other categories that can be for consideration for the committee. And then the way we evaluate projects that come in outside of just the categories is how much of the community is actually utilizing this. And this comes in with either feedback mechanisms, usage metrics, adoption rates. I had an idea of using SBOMs to see if they're in dependencies, but that's kind of for bigger projects and stuff. And then we do have Bitergia, which may be able to look at these repositories from a GitHub perspective and get us more insight. We also needed to talk about the licensing and open source compliance piece. Usually what we support is MIT and Apache 2. There's other conversations that projects use dual licensing, which is a contention point here and there. Like BSL is proprietary for like up to 10 years, then it goes open source. The other thing is also program overlap and ecosystem fit, i.e. making sure there's not duplication or double dipping per se. And then governance and contribution proof, i.e. making sure that there is a governance structure in place of some kind, transparency, community involvement, and then kind of requiring proof of contributions, stats, community engagement. That one varies by project. And then we need a roadmap and ROI evaluation. Essentially, that's what we're doing. And then we're keeping it twofold where we do have obviously a funding bucket. We need to highlight the specific criteria of how we're selecting the projects, monitor them, and then also ensure that there's a non-financial support such as mentorship, technical guidance, etc. How do you build communities? And the budget we have proposed actually is ironic because I think the TSC had 4 million ADA for the year. Without knowing that, we put ourselves down for 2 million ADA for 6 months. So it kind of already loops into the program that they had.
That was lucky.
Yeah. And then I think it'll cover development, maintenance, and sustainability efforts. And given current proposal review body experience, I think it'll work if we kind of tie it in maybe with the same process they have. And at least that can be our lead generation as the projects that get to us, and then we review more criticality type stuff. But not just because a project suggests a figure, they get that figure type thing. So that's kind of the idea we had right now. Any questions? Or Adam, Sebastian, anything I'm missing?
Just to clarify, this is not only an addition or transfer to the open source budget, but this is also a working group open via application.
Yeah, so it would be a new working group. So we would need to find who's serving on it. I know Ben Hart from MLabs, who just joined the call, had expressed interest in kind of being a part of it. And then, yeah, I don't know. I'm happy to lead this if we need to, but I would prefer to see somebody else from OSC serving as leading that working group. But we would like to have at least one sitting voting member of OSC as the kind of leader of that working group, if possible.
Yeah, and we can work in it that if we have other members in their proposals, they're part of the group and they submit a proposal, they abstain from the review process. We can work in safeguard mechanisms like that.
Just for awareness, because I'm working this across other channels as well. As far as Discord and transparency, like things will need to show for this working group, and there would be the open forum channel on Discord, but how the meetings, however, and the core participants can be restricted via application and the meeting links that way. But again, the community would still have opportunity to provide feedback through that Discord channel that has to stay open. So
yeah, I think we do it the same way that we're doing OSC. I mean,
that was short. I'm just making sure that that's clear, because across some other groups it may not be, and so give it to you now as opposed to coming back at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I
big
think
thing I
that-
would
that's crucial
imagine.
that we-
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Robin.
Sorry. Yeah, I think that's crucial that we don't run into some kind of conflict of interest there with people involved in this group. How do we make sure that that works out well?
That are my concerns too. I think initially it's a really good document to start, but that part you mentioned is concern to me also too.
well,
Maybe we can start with we define a specific criteria to select projects, right? Independent of the what organization check those criteria, and start from there. Start from the criteria dependent of the relationship of the project with other organizations, and from that I would like to see some independence and some kind of identification of conflicts, something like that. But initially the criteria is important, in my opinion.
yeah, the this one-page memo is just meant to inform everyone what the intent is, approve us to move forward with it, and then nothing gets instituted until we have a committee review to approve the structure and stuff.
Sure.
And a little teaser is I do have a framework that I've already drafted for like the maintainer retention and code for us models. I think we just tie in this tooling piece to this. That way we have a clear way of all three of our programs, how they're going to process and how we can potentially do this. And it might be able to use the same structure. And I'm still working on sending this to y'all because we have documentation overload at the moment.
Yeah, I just
That's
wanted to
good.
jump in and clarify real quick one point on this program. The idea was that the maintainer retainer program and this tooling working group would be kind of separate, where maintainer retainer should be more for projects that don't have a clear roadmap but still do have identified usefulness, and we want to just kind of keep them at the level that they are, versus this newer tooling working group where we assume that there is active ongoing development and a clear target and a clear demonstrable use and utilization within the ecosystem. So what we had discussed, at least in that initial scoping session, was to not, you basically can't have maintainer retainer and code for us and tooling working group funding and Catalyst and all these things coming in. So we do want to make sure that we're not just providing an infinite font of money to projects, but we're helping to sustain and maintain the people that are doing good work and don't have other funding sources coming in. That was the big intent. So, if you have a contract from core, you don't also get tooling, and things like that. So that'll be the very high priority in my mind for this working group and us as OSC as well to scope out, is make sure that we're deploying all of our funds in a very responsible way to maximize contribution to the ecosystem and not just enriching a small handful of people. And to that end, I know Sebastian is attached to Andamio a little bit. Robin, you have a project that's open source and contributing in the ecosystem that might be after funding, and probably several other people as members too as well. I think we're okay there as long as you recuse yourself and clearly label that if those projects are going. You don't be involved in the decision making, but we should probably have that also written in stone somewhere in the charter that should a conflict of interest arise, here's how we expect members to deal with it, and a recourse if we find that you're violating that probably as well, right? So if you're found to be in violation of this and not recusing yourself or not disclosing conflicts, then you invalidated your project's access to funding or something like that. But obviously that's just top of my head. Should not be considered final language, but we can work on that. But we should definitely consider adopting it as part of the committee, in my opinion.
Great stuff. Jordan?
Yeah, so is this working group going to be a subset then of the open source committee? Or is it going to be its own entity?
No, it would be a subset of the open source committee. So working groups by restriction or by establishment are required to align with a committee. Committees are responsible to oversee the working groups. Committees have the responsibility to spin up or spin down a working group. So if there is a working group that is ineffective, as a future evolution of things I'm trying to get to, that'll go back to the responsible committee. They're all nested if you've seen anything in the Discord there. So if a working group is not performing, underperforming, not participating, it would be up to the committee specifically to shut that down. And before I go to Robin, just a note for the voting members of OSC, there is a poll that I just put up there for the tooling working group. It is under the shapes there at the bottom. Just click on that, click on polls. Please give me your vote. Thanks.
Robin?
Another question. Maybe it was said already and I didn't get it, but so the maintainer retainer program funds the maintainers directly. So it's the person who's the beneficiary of this tooling funds.
The people who submit the projects. So it would be based on project level. So I guess whatever main sponsor, or we could do it where we nominate a champion, maybe, or something like that. Open to thoughts on it, rather than go to the organization specifically, because I don't know.
So just one version. Hopefully, I'm not too off par here, but from Anastasia, there was the idea of bringing over Lucid and/or Lucid Evolution and making those part of Core Cardano. That's probably still a bigger decision in one frame of mind, but the tooling working group essentially would cover, or adding that to the budget would cover those costs. Obviously, because we already have maintainers elsewhere, that would be a separate program if we start to compensate maintainers that way. But if we still need to go back to Anastasia and have one of them be a maintainer for 6, 12, or 18 months, essentially funding would go to the project in that sense, is my understanding.
Anna?
Yeah, well, maybe we need to have a better conversation, because I don't think anybody is intending Intersect to be a dumping ground where you can come to offload your open source project and then leave it to die. So we're not just going to take it and then you get to call it our job and our responsibility. But there is, the TSC is very open to using our project lifecycle framework that Christian and Tex and people in here have been working on, and we've been approving as the committee, to determine, because there are some things like Aiken that probably should have gone through the catalyst to the tooling working group, but now are prevalently enough used in the ecosystem to be considered core. And so TSC is looking at potentially giving core funding to projects like Aiken, should they require it. So there is potentially a way for a JavaScript library transaction builder framework like Lucid to maybe rise to that level, but I don't think that Lucid Evolution, just because Anastasia Labs forked it and has cheerleaded it a bunch, they received, I want to say, 400 to 600,000 ADA worth of funding from Catalyst in the most recent round. So they're definitely not in any position to be asking for budget from any of the committees, in my opinion, at this time. And that's one of those things where I want to know fully disclosed who's getting already funding from other sources, so that we're not wasting these additional funds that we have, and we're actually giving them where they can be useful to projects, to keep projects alive and not just further enrich projects that are already well funded.
Christian.
Yeah, to clarify too, we do have the mitigation process in place, so Intersect isn't the dumping ground because you have 3 different review stages before projects are incubated. I do like the idea of organizations putting some of their open source code here, but it also requires them to be an active contributor to it. And we will for sure put their project in red if they intend to walk away and just archive it. So yeah, we'll make sure that active participation. This is just similar stuff that like Hyperledger is a good example where they started labs, and those projects, they have several sandbox projects, but they haven't matured enough to get up to the funding levels associated with the organization. So to qualify for these things, you got to be at least in the middle ground of maturity, and then you can start getting some funding, etc. And that's if you're in the incubation program. So.
Okay, guys. I can't. I think I would like to avoid. We have parallel discussions on chat. So just Benjamin, if you want to voice what you're writing there, just speak up very briefly, and let's try to move on with the discussion. Otherwise, I'm not sure if we have any more remarks on this. I think there was a lot of feedback, which was great.
Yeah, the vote shows that it's approved.
Sorry, I don't need to take up time. I'll leave it to the voting members. That's why I'm putting it in chat. It's okay.
Cheers. Okay, thanks. So I guess I'm actually just going to do my own vote as well. And I think if there's no more remarks for today on this topic, maybe we can go back to the agenda and carry on.
One remark. It was stated that one person from the OSC should stand up potentially and be either the head of the group or involved in the group. What is the time frame for that? Times, how often meeting, what kind of things is this established?
So the tooling group doesn't, or the working group doesn't exist yet. So that would need to be chartered. I'm imagining a bit of a front load as we have several projects that are already kind of in the queue. But I imagine that the working group could eventually probably get down to like a once a month cadence. So it would be, host a meeting once a month, go over any new submissions, monitor progress, and then report back to the OSC on what the working group has been doing. So that would be my expectation. Like, I don't want to create an ecosystem full of bureaucrats spending full-time work in meetings talking about when they should meet next. So the more lean and mean we can make this and just get in, do the work, and get it done, the better, in my opinion.
I'm a fan of that approach, and I would stand up and volunteer to be considered for the position because I like tooling and I want tooling to exist. So I would like to be on the front lines of helping anybody make it exist.
Okay. Well, I know the next step to this too is also editing the budget and putting that back out on the forum and doing some comms. I'll work with the Intersect leadership to get that across. But it shouldn't be any complication because it's just transferring from TSC to OSC, not increasing our budget, really. Actually, I think it reduces it.
Yeah, it reduces a 4 million ADA line item on the TSC side to a 2 million. So we're actually saving the budget, the technical core budget, 2 million ADA in 2025, and more closely aligning. So it's a win all around. And so thank you, Johnny. And I saw Sandeep raised his hand, so let's go to him real quick.
Thank you. I'm also pretty interested in this. I would be interested in a supporting role. If Johnny takes the lead, I can be in the support.
Okay.
Making note. Any other thoughts, Tex?
Yeah, just echoing that. I don't think that I think that worked itself out. But just for reference, since we are upon the elections period here, let's just note that anybody who may be up for falling off the committee for whatever purpose or may need to go for re-election unless you're going for re-election, maybe it's best not to step up in a lead role at this time for something. But I don't think that's the big issue. I'm just
in my case, October is the deadline for re-election for me, so that's why I stood up.
Yep.
And so everybody's aware, the goal of working groups should be to increase outside participation outside of the core voting committee members. So we should encourage other people in the community that want to get involved and be part of this budgeting and community support process to step up and be part of that working group, even though they're not on a committee, because that is how we can start showing community involvement in these efforts, and it doesn't just become the 9 of us doing all that.
Yeah. Considering the conversation I've just had on Twitter with a great deal of skepticism about Intersect, it's going to be a task, but we'll give it a go.
All right, yeah, like Christian said, let's move ahead on the agenda, though, because we have Christian again here, so let's make sure he has a chance to speak.
Right. So next point, or maybe the one that we could talk about, could be exactly this one, right? I'm not sure if which of the Christians wants to pick this one up.
Chris with the K.
Okay, Kowalski.
Hi.
Hey,
those
you have
of
the
you who
floor.
don't know me, I'm sitting on budget committee, but I'm also kind of took over accelerating the commercialization working group. As I work in Modus Create, that's one of large contributors to Cardano development for the last 3 years. Idea behind it, so this is not on the business side, this is me using my infrastructure to help Cardano ecosystem. What we came out before Intersect was brought, there is a gap. Like there are companies that are working in blockchain and they're small, and then you have big people that are thinking about blockchain and they have so many steps and obstacles to get there. And when Intersect started, the idea is, oh, Intersect is going to be a facilitator, something what Emergo and CF didn't do. Or trying, let's not go there. So starting with 2025, budget was already kind of locked in, and at some point we said, okay, maybe there is room that we add a line item that was approved from Intersect executives, and we came with this proposal. Idea is, so this is inside a commercial working group charter, and idea is, what can we do in this year that's meaningful, there is impact, and we will see benefits. So not building a pyramid. We have some very smart people, and most of them are from business side, and we came up that there is a gap when you have catalyst projects, when you have people who are already been working and they don't necessarily know where to go, or are missing some sort of a platform where they can come ask for questions, can come for some of the resources, and have a bridge for the next phase. Is that catalyst or full production where they're self-reliant, or something else, a VC fund, whatever. Not us, not our problem to solve. So accelerator is something that could be helpful. Not gonna be where it's a very easy answer. Everybody else have it. We should also have it. It is a conduit for service providers to provide services for free or at heavy discount to our interest startups or initiatives. And this would be a meeting point. Idea is that we establish a domain under Intersect domain incubator, accelerator incubator. It's going to start as accelerator web service where you can come and select some of the services that Intersect is going to provide, or you can come and select some of the services that the service providers like AWS, Azure, Adobe, whatever you need, Docker, Jenkins, are going to give you for free or other heavy discount. And usually when you were looking for things like that, other blockchain ecosystems have their own funnel. And they're limited. They're like, if you want to build on Ethereum, here's the website, here's the resources, but you cannot say, oh, I'm going to build Cardano. We, during our analysis, what's there in space, there are three or four incubators that have been funded through Catalyst 13. Just a second. I've been pinged by something. I need to just answer yes. I'm back. So there are 4 incubators that have been funded by Catalyst, but they're still short-term. Some of them are 4 months, and they're not a annual framework that's going to stay. And idea is that we have something that's going to grow to be an annual thing that's going to be very lean. So we're not looking to have a bunch of staff people, but we're looking for to connect experienced people from Cardano. Doesn't have to be even Cardano community. Experienced people, SMEs, that's going to help steer young businesses that are coming to Cardano and give them a place where they can grow. So accelerator, incubator, you can use both the words. Yeah, I think I've spoken enough. Adam, go.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. This is awesome, and definitely helps scope it over just the raw proposal that we had last week. So I appreciate that. Do you have an estimate on how many? Because you said it'll be 50,000 to do 2 to 3 of these trial runs. Do you have any idea of how many projects you would be able to potentially facilitate per pilot?
So, I mean, there's something really funny happening, because I haven't been talking about this with some other people in Intersect, and I just recently found out there is going to be a project from product committee where they're going to look for startups, initiatives, which should come to Intersect, and Intersect should help them. And essentially, they're going to create a funnel. And Sam Ladders is leading that. And I was like, oh my God, this is like amazing. Somebody is working on the other side of Intersect that really helps this initiative. I would say at this point, if we get 5 to 10 projects into it that qualify, let's say, okay, we're building on Cardano, there it's a sense we should do it, and we get 10 this year, that's great. And then we can help them, steer them, go to VC, low chance, go to Catalyst, prepare them, introduce them to some other project, maybe they can combine. Idea is that they keep running. We're not building a new unicorn here, but my idea is to have companies which are self-sustainable, they can grow, and they're going to provide a meaningful product or service, not just another gambling website, poker online. Saying that because I get a lot of these weird ads on blockchain. That's the idea. We found, so John Woodard from Wolfram Labs, he had some experience with that. We have another document we have steps how we want to go, and idea is that we do this very early once the budget has been approved. I'm also talking to AWS for them to be a co-sponsor of this program, and with that we're going to look into other enterprise service providers, because they have these programs and they can white label it and say, okay, AWS is supporting Cardano. So
Christian, if this document is okay to share, I'd ask you to drop it on the chat for everyone in the committee here to have a look. And I also like to invite anyone here, if they're curious to learn more about this, to come by the commercialization working group call that's going to happen some 90 minutes from now, right? If you don't have access to that kind of thing, just ping us on Discord. And I'm not sure if anyone else has any questions. Terrence?
Are we ready to call for a vote on this, or do we need another week of time with a fully produced document here?
Guys, any quick check on thumbs up?
The document is finished. Maybe it needs some font polishing. What we need from this document further is a step-by-step guide that we're.
Oh yeah, Chris. What Tex was asking is if the committee feels comfortable voting to add this to our budget, or if the members want to wait one more week just so we can read through it individually. So let's temp check the room. Thumbs up in the chat, or thumbs down, or raise your hand if you have an objection. I guess. I don't know exactly how we should do this, but
I'd like to read it first.
Me too.
Okay, and also, someone was asking you about how you're going to break down the budget. Maybe that's my question as well. I'm not sure if your document already encompasses that. So people were asking you for the 50K, how are you going to spread them out through projects or something like that? I'm not sure if that's in the document. I would encourage you, if that's not in the document, I would encourage you to put it in there. And maybe let's allow for 2 weeks for us to vote on this 2 weeks from today.
It's not in the document. There is
even descriptively, right? Don't need to put numbers, but explain a bit what you would do with the amount. Okay.
There is explanation what's going to be done with the money, but not descriptively to break down the 50K. I think 50K is we came down from 100K because we don't think we're going to need 100K. I think essentially it's going to be a smaller amount. 50K is more like a location. In my opinion, it's going to be maybe 25, 30K in total. But the thing is, it really depends how many projects apply.
Sure.
I think we should have how many money do we think project will consume, and that should be it.
But I think the overall question is about how project would consume this amount. What would you give money away to a project for? And that's what I would like to see described on the document. But again, let's just manage our time. Sorry about that. But there's a working group channel on the forum channels and in Discord. Let's talk there and come to the call 90 minutes from now or 80 if you want to work on this topic a bit more. Okay. Thanks for that. Let's go to Tex, please.
Yeah, I defer to you on this. I had heard you say 2 weeks, but I was simply going to put a poll up for accelerated program in Discord, run it for 3 days, or as much as a week. But I don't know if we need to wait until we convene again, because budget is upon us here. So
sure. Yeah. So if no one disagrees, stay synchronously.
Discord. No qualms. It's going up. Yell at me if you have a problem. So. And then I can go to my next piece here or whichever.
Jump in, yeah.
Okay. Bear with me, I've got 16 million tabs open, but that's what I'm looking for. Okay.
I'm happy to share my screen as well.
I got it here. This is in the share drive. There's one question I realized was missing after I set this up for everyone to copy out and whatnot, but hopefully this isn't locked anymore. Take that off. Never mind. Oh, there we go. Just in case that was still on there. So basically what we're looking for is 3 questions that are going to be added to the application. These questions are going to be provided to the applicants to give us more information on why they should be on the open source committee. I've been advising all of the different committees or groups as I've had an opportunity to present. What is the experience that you wish that you had? What experiences do you wish that you were hearing from an open source perspective? Or simply, what do you think we can ask somebody to detail out that would show that they have the skills and requirements necessary to participate in this decision-making body? 3 questions may seem brief. It's basically, the extent that we're allowed to at this point, and I have a deadline of next Wednesday to get this back. So I know that's a pretty quick turnaround, and I apologize for not maybe releasing this to y'all sooner since I own it, but I figured this could come together pretty quickly. Again, it's in the shared drive, so you can adjust it there, or if y'all just want to throw comments at me or throw the questions at me either in Discord or Slack, just identified as such, and I'm more than happy to put this together and get this to the team. This will go through just 1 week of blanket ISC review, so if they choose to look at it, they can. If they don't have any issues, it's all good. But yeah, just for more awareness than anything else is why they'll get a look at it.
Any quick feedback from anyone?
I'll repeat the feedback that I gave at TSC for a potential question to add to this, because a lot of the work involved in these committees seems to be around being able to handle budgetary requirements, tendering processes, making sure that things are actually approved. And sort of reviewed and maybe audited to make sure they're correct. That kind of experience would be something that could be a question, not a necessity, but certainly a nice to have question. Like, what kind of experience do you have with contract management, auditing, budgeting processes, reviewing proposals? Because that is the style of work itself, and letting people know through a question what the style of work is might be a good way to make them aware of what they're applying for more.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think you should mention also policy setting within that work or meet too, or experience therefore.
That could be a second question of the 3. So one for specific budgetary and then one for policy.
Yeah, and then maybe even around developer community building. I don't know. The question we answer is how we develop. So
without interrupting the flow of questions, I just want to drop it in there. If anybody has a statement or wants to kind of just throw something together as to what the committee would feel comfortable having Intersect market for the OSC, I'm looking for a social statement as well. So as part of the comms package, the plan or goal that I've worked out is that each committee will have provided a statement. Intersect will market that statement to give a specific focus to the committee, to each committee during the 2-week comms period before elections begin. Back that up for a second. If you're not familiar, comms are going to start on March the 3rd, run for 2 weeks. We are still targeting March 17th as the date that the applications are going to open for new committee members.
Okay, so we have the document on the chat. I'm going to drop it on Discord as well, if it's not there already. So I would ask that anyone just comment on Discord on this topic, and maybe we can move on to next ones.
Just the internal channel, of course, if you don't mind.
Cool, thanks. Just going to make a note of that. So we have had these 2 topics there, the budget proposal changes. I don't think there's anything else to wrap there, because so we've looked at the tooling working group, we've looked at commercialization, and now we've looked at the election questions. If there's no loose endings so far, there's an item there about the Amurgo Project's incubation program. I think Tex is on this one. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can take it. Christian, I just wanted to verify if you. Well, actually, yeah, we should do.
I put that document in the drive as a Word file because I couldn't get it in under root for some reason.
Just transfer me ownership. I can move it.
Okay. Well, it should still.
Yeah, either way. Okay. We'll just run through them here pretty quick and simple. What I'm going to do, if y'all give me just a moment, I'll show you guys the details here, but then what I'll do is I'll make a copy of these in the shared drive for you guys to, in the OSC shared drive for you guys to be able to comment on. As a suggestion here for incubation, does show first pass through the tooling working group, second pass through the open source committee. So we're kind of skipping a step right now because that group isn't fully formed, and we just agreed to do it. But we're just jumping right to it because this is what we have, and we're trying to work with the pilot nature here. Yes.
Just curious, did these go through the triage group that we do already have set up?
No, not yet. We can run it through there. Those are just review process. That's why I just put there because I didn't know what should be the first pass.
Right. That was just a question. I know it came up that you had mentioned these yesterday. I think it was, or the day before when we were in our scoping for the tooling working group, that we had these proposals come in from Emergo. I'm just wondering how we need to make sure that we don't have various different openings to the same funnel to where people get lost and fall through the cracks. So if we are encouraging all projects to go through the product and the triage process, we probably want to make sure that everything continues to get routed through there so that there's no sense of kind of running around people, I guess.
Well, and that was the incubation's a little bit different from projects wanting to receive funding. So maybe it has, because it only ties in TSC, OSC. It's not necessarily a product.
Well,
anything.
If I'm not mistaken, I might be jumping ahead, but I think two of these are like not even existing things that Emergo now wants to build, but or at least one of them, there's not even a GitHub for yet. So, I mean, I very much think that needs to be on product committee, and whether or not this is something that's actually useful to the ecosystem first before OSC or anybody else starts to quote unquote incubate it into an existing project. We have to define whether or not there's any interest in the community for it. Rather than
maybe we do that, yeah, where it could be a product committee review first or one of their working groups before it gets to us. Because I do like the idea that they could incubate and sandbox it here, but sorry
to cut you off, but Tex has been raising his hand repeatedly. Maybe let's respect that a bit. Okay, keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be super funny with that. I'm just trying to clarify here. If there is now an issue because the project incubation or us opening up a form to take in projects happened, if not before, then around the same time that the TSC form went out. And so if there's conflicting processes there, then that's something completely different for us to look at and address right off the bat than going into the details of this. And if that's something that we want to hand off as a remit to the tooling working group, I would say that would be appropriate, whereas we could keep two separate workflows, being that we're expecting open source projects with MVP to come through the project incubation specifically. The tooling working group has first oversight, and if they say, hey, this is a new build project, well, boom, that immediately goes over and gets kicked over to the PRB, the proposal reviewing body. So I think that's what would be a good way to do it if we keep the separate flows. If we need to combine the flows, then I would arbitrate that there's a lot of work that we did to get this process ready to go. And if we try to merge in the other side, that's going to completely change how we funnel a project into project incubation. And we're kind of blurring the lines here between something that we're trying to develop and give support to versus are we giving every single technical project through the TSC workstream the full project incubation application, because that's a lot more co-work that I don't believe has been agreed upon yet. So,
Adam.
Yeah, I'm just worried that what I keep seeing through this entire budget process and everything else is that we do too much work in isolation. And so now we do have 3 different committees that have developed essentially the exact same process for their committee specifically. And so again, your experience as a developer or somebody interested in the ecosystem kind of depends on which committee you approach first, right? And whose funnel you get thrown into, rather than Intersect having a funnel for the community. And so that's my only concern and why I addressed it right off the bat, because I don't want to see us duplicating efforts. So where is that first point of entry, is, I guess, my big question. Go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to call on Jurg if he has prior experience seeing how this is handled other places, by chance. If you're there, you're
Paging Jorg. So sorry. So just to recontextualize very quickly, the guys are going on about the incubation process in OSC versus the technical steering committee's one. And if we don't get any closure on this, we're going to have to try to sidetrack or to find another venue to discuss it.
Yeah, well,
Jorg.
let's leave this as just a concern that we can address async and figure out, and let's continue through the document.
Yeah. Okay. So for next change here, blockchain-based carbon credit tokenization marketplace. This is one of the more developed projects they have. Forgive me, I don't have my, full Chat GPT summary right here. No, I'm kidding. And I got this all copied over in a readable format, but I haven't been able to read through it. So, kind of leave that as the description, the context, and then let me know if you need to see much else on it.
I mean, just reading it, this already sounds like a product, so I'm not really sure what they're looking for here. Okay. Maybe maybe it is down here below. So what's the TLDR here? Are they wanting to give Intersect the repository and manage it? Like what exactly is the request or the ask here?
So the idea is they want to incubate it under Intersect as an open source library. We get to decide the requirements. They're just answering some basic questions, and we can come back to them with more feedback or stuff like that. We're only at the consideration stage right now. But I can ask them specifically follow-up questions following this.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, just at first glance, this is a product. This is a business, a DEX, but for carbon credits, that's very obviously heavily opinionated towards USDA, a stable coin that doesn't exist yet, but is under development by Emergo. So there's already some clear preferential treatment going on, and there's no clear how is this actually going to be of benefit to anybody outside of Next Change. So, I mean, that's my initial first red flag warning that what does Intersect get out of supporting and or promoting this particular project?
I'm with you. I only told them I'd put them in review. I didn't promise them anything.
Okay. So I think maybe let's text. Are we sharing these documents or are we just bouncing them off on calls? What's the next steps here?
Right now, I'm just showing this on the call. Again, I need to move this into the OSC share drive before it can be shared with the group.
Okay.
It wasn't put in the wrong place unintentionally. It's just that the incubation is, yes, OSC has oversight, but also has to carry it out, and that's why it was set in a specific folder. So
okay, no worries. So just to check in terms of next steps, it's going to be on your side to eventually share it, and we're going to have more of these situations that we're going to have on calls for people to review and discuss, right?
Well, I mean, I think just we've demonstrated already where we're giving importance to the tooling working group, and I don't want to misappropriate what was already defined earlier, but I think with them having the first pass on this, that working group is going to be able to tell us whether it's a project or a product. And so in terms of that differentiation, as Adam also so cleanly identifies, right, if it's a product, then it does not seemingly fit our project incubation flow and therefore should not potentially be accepted.
Okay.
So I think that highlights the importance, and we really need to do some development within that group.
So what I'm hearing is you were going to maybe prioritize the tooling working group to triage these kinds of situations.
They are first on the list. So.
Okay. Okay. So let's just go to Johnny and maybe close on this topic for today. And Christian.
Just in the interest of full disclosure, what do you do if I have an inherent bias against the project's stated goals? Like, I'm not a fan of carbon credit marketplaces, but should that come in to any decision making at all? Because it's like immaterial to the request that they have, and it would be a blocker that would just be based on personal opinion.
I mean, I think you could argue it in the way of if they define an improvement to Cardano that just doesn't match, and you can tell that it's fodder. I mean, that might be the way that you go about it, but it has to be for a strict reason as to why it doesn't provide benefit back to Cardano more so than you're just.
Yeah, more so than just like, I don't agree with this as a thing. Yeah, it's existentially, it's not a nice bit of feedback to give anyone. And I'm glad this is recorded because I do want to recognize that I have that bias and I want to figure out how to deal with it.
Cheers. Guys, briefly, let's go to Hans. Christian.
Yep, I just wanted to clarify the process for this. So I'm not advocating any projects for adoption, but the working groups will be the first pass in that they put down red flag notices and recommendations, and it's up to the committees to collectively decide to adopt it, just so that's out there. Tooling working group is just, if we don't have time to read a 10-page document, they can give us a quick memo on their TLDR. And we can use that. And to your point, Johnny, I think as long as you're transparent with your biases, you can go with your personal ethics. I mean, that's why we're disclosing all our affiliations before we join the call.
Okay, I think that closes this topic a bit, and we've gone over all this. We still have these two, and because we have Alex in the room, I think we still have Alex, right? Yes. Can we just acknowledge that this document is still under work and asynchronously, and just have this quick check-in very, very briefly from Alex? Let's go for it. Alex? Hey.
Yeah, hello, everyone.
So could you give us a quick developer advocates check-in and updates on what you guys have been up to? How's it going?
Yeah, so if you know, there's four of us, myself, Yudai, Bernard, and Saganya. Currently, like, there's quite a bit of autonomy, and each of us does some things that we don't share with each other, just not to overload, but together we work on developer experience working group, testing the contribution ladder, bringing in people who would like to contribute, and so that their things that they do could be measured against the contribution ladder. I personally focus on helping Cardano community here in Vietnam. It's been pretty interesting endeavor, and I attended some of the events there, and there's more events coming. I know that Bernard works with the students in Johannesburg in South Africa. Yudai is in India, and he works with developers in India, and Saganya is in Canada, and so she's covering the Western Hemisphere and works with the United States and LATAM universities and so on. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen just to call your attention to the developer working group channel there. There's Alex right here. Personally, I've been curious a bit to get more of your updates. So I just want to invite you to keep coming to these calls and keep a loop, because since you're so connected to OSC, you know, at least have one of you, or ideally one point of connection that always comes to these calls to give us these kinds of updates. Okay.
Understood.
Thank you so much. Tex.
Yeah, just a quick clarity. So there's the developer advocate water cooler where the community can approach the developer advocates specifically, but they are spinning back up the developer experience working group, which is found under those forum channels, the OSC working groups.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Those things are the worst part of Discord. Just I want to have that on record. Like you don't get notifications. Like
Fully
it
noted.
doesn't even highlight. So one of the worst. Discord is a hot dumpster fire of a train wreck, but those forums just make it that much worse.
Yeah, if you double click on them, I'm pretty sure you can follow them or something, so that you start being in the channel. If you just take a peek at it, yes, I agree. You don't subscribe to it.
Yeah, like unless you explicitly subscribe, you never see that there's new messages, and then all of a sudden you go and look at it, and you're like, oh wow, like there's been a ton of conversation
for example,
that I've missed. So.
what I just did was saying hi in there, subscribed me to it. If I go to another one, probably I'll see it in that situation where I'm just taking a peek and I'm not a member. Okay, so these small nuances that I gather are tricky within Discord, but if we master them.
So just I beg your pardon. We found that we're using more discussions in. So for communication between us, we use calls, and for discussions outside calls, we use GitHub discussions in a repository I just shared in the chat. Okay. Because I haven't been using actually this. I was surprised it exists.
Okay, so maybe let's do a bit of both. Okay. And keep an eye on that one, and we'll try to be a bit more in the loop here. When you say you have discussions on here, what do you actually mean?
There is a tab on the top under Intersect MBO Developer Experience on the right.
Right next to PRs
discussion.
there, yeah. Lucas. There's a discussions tab.
I put it directly into discussions.
Okay. Okay, guys, I think that's all we have time for today. I'm going to drop this link on the Discord thing, and yeah, let's keep in touch. See you 1 hour from now on the commercialization working group call if you can. Otherwise, let's async on Discord. Anything else from anyone?
No. Bye.
Thank you so much. Keep in touch.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.